Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the Southampton Select Board meeting, October 30th, 2018. This meeting is being broadcast live on East Hampton Media, and it's also being taped and will be uploaded on the Southampton website. My name is Renee Groden. I'm the Vice Chair of the Select Board. John Martin's not able to attend tonight. To my left, other Select Board members, Jim Labrie, Francine Tishman. To my right, Matt Rowland. And to my far left, our Town Administrator, Ed Gibson. If we could begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we begin with the agenda items, I just want to remind everyone that next week is the election. There is still early voting tomorrow and Thursday from 8:30 to 4 in the town hall, and Friday from 12 to 6. The election is next Tuesday, and the voting is between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at the senior center. So hopefully you'll all come out and vote. The first item is appointment of Matt Rowland to the Capital Committee, the term to expire June 30th, 2021. Okay, so we can have a motion.
I move to approve Matt as a member of the Capital Committee.
Second.
Discussion. Matt, now, last time we talked about this being a liaison assignment versus a committee assignment.
Yep.
And is it a committee assignment?
Yeah, so right now I serve as the liaison to the Capital Committee, but they've been down to, I think, what, four people, Ed? Yes. And they've been at 4 for quite some time, and I figure since I'm liaison to the committee that I might as well be the 5th member as well. As it were, I actually have most of my professional backgrounds in capital equipment sales.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this is a perfect fit.
Great.
Perfect.
Great. And there's nothing in the bylaws that says anything about assignment, because I know that there are 2 committees that are voting, but it's totally fine?
This one is fine.
Great. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain,
Abstain?
right? I mean, I probably should.
Yep.
Yeah.
There are no hearings. Next is Select Board member reports. Jim, you have anything from?
Yeah, I was trying to, I was going to update everybody with the planning board. They're working on a recreational marijuana bylaw, and we're scheduling the public hearing, which is coming up. It's either going to be the first Wednesday of November, or I think the third Wednesday in November. I'm not sure that's finalized yet, but it should be really close to being finalized. That will be the public hearing portion of that bylaw. That's all I got.
Okay, that'll be posted. Sure.
Yes, it will be posted.
Okay. Francine?
Okay, yes, I have 2 committees to report on. One is the Norris School Committee, which met last week. The committee approved the agreement for central office services with the Worthington School District. You know that they're purchasing services for their elementary school through the central office. And that agreement is a 3-year agreement, and the total amount is $21,000. The numbers in for school choice students coming to Norris is 57. There will be a continuation of a meeting on capital improvements and repair for items in the school. That meeting will take place on November 7th. The superintendent is putting together a small committee to look at the policy and the placement of security cameras in the school, and he'll be outreaching for and calling out for members of that. I'll leave other details of the school meeting to Aaron, who's the school committee chair, who's on the agenda a little bit later. The second committee,
Can you just hang on for 1 second? Ed, did you get all of that, or do you have notes? Ed's doing the minutes.
I can give him my notes. I do.
Okay.
I have written notes. I'll give you a copy.
Done that before, just you which
Okay. All right. And then my next committee assignment is kind of revitalizing the Master Plan Implementation Committee. We had our first meeting last night. we're off, I believe, to a good start. We have great representation. We began by putting together an organizational structure, and we started planning our work. There's a lot of background, I'm not going to say investigation, but a lot of background review of what's gone on since the plan was finalized in 2013 and since the committee last met in 2015. So we're trying to fill the gap and see where we are in progress towards some of the goals that were set by the town. Our next meeting, we're going to be meeting twice in November. We're meeting November 6th, and the second meeting would be November 19th, just to make people aware of that. And that's all I have.
And you are still recruiting a couple of members?
We need one more at-large member. Yes, we do. We have requests out. Anyone that you feel that you know could make a contribution to this, I think to let this plan, not that the rest of the committee can't do the work, but to have as much representation from the town on the committee to advance the goals it set for itself. It was an extensive report. It took over 3 years to compile with a lot of input from citizens, and making those, I'm not going to say dreams, but making those plans become a reality, I think, are very important to the progress of the town, seeing where we want to go. So please, candidate number 4, please come forward. Thank you.
I have just a quick question. On school choice, you said 57 currently? Is that up or down from the previous year?
Here.
It's similar to what it's been in the past. Aaron Kuchar School Committee, it's similar. We try to take in the same number that we had before, so that we're not taxing our teachers more by creating too many kids but being able to service the ones. And it all depends on who wants it and who doesn't. So we had a large class that left last year that had a lot of school choice in it. They're up at the regional. And the ones coming in, there wasn't as many that came into kindergarten than we anticipated, so.
Okay, so it's about level.
It's about level. Yeah, we were anywhere between
Yeah.
like 55 to 60 usually.
Yeah, last year it shows here that there were 63. This
Yeah.
year there's 57.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
usually
It's a 5
somewhere between,
student
yeah,
difference.
somewhere in there, so. It's
Okay,
down a bit.
thank you.
Aaron, while you're up there, you just mentioned something that they're up at the regional. Do you know if we do, in fact,
At school choice?
people stay with the system and go up to Hampshire, or do we lose a lot of people to PVPA or other private schools right now?
I don't know them. I mean, I
curious.
do know they take quite a few at the regional, but I don't know what those
Yeah,
numbers
okay.
are like.
But the ones that come to Southampton, you think?
I know some that
move
did go
up?
this
Okay.
year, so I do know some.
Great.
So.
Thanks. Matt, do you have anything?
On Capital Committee, they have not met since our last meeting. PQB met last week at the same time that we were at Select Board meeting, but I can review a couple of the minutes. We scored a number of positions in town, including building commissioner, assistant town clerk, and the volunteer coordinator for Council on Aging. We didn't do any, as we can see on the agenda for us tonight, we didn't do any PCFs at all during that meeting. And I don't have any updates from the Board of Health.
Thanks. So on the Council of Aging, we had a nice gathering at the Senior Center. Senator Humison arrived, as well as Diana Zinel, who is the aide to the late Peter Cocott. And we had they had a legislative earmark for FY19 of $5,500. So we had a nice ceremony where we had a big check and had some pictures taken, which hopefully will be uploaded into our website. But that was a nice extra earmark for the Council of Aging from the state, and those funds will be used for equipment and programming for seniors. And check the newsletter for upcoming holiday events and trips from the Council of Aging. The Conservation Commission, nothing specific to report, although this coming Monday, November 5th at 6 o'clock, there's a combined meeting of the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Review Committee. The Kestrel representatives, Mark Walmsley and Monica Green, who is the development coordinator, is coming and talking about what would it involve to start a fund at Kestrel for the donation of land and protection of lands in Southampton. So the Open Space Committee had compiled a list of questions that I have sent over to Kestrel. So from 6 to 6:30 will be a combined meeting with Concom and Open Space with Kestrel. And community preservation, there's no updates unless, Virginia, you have something you want to say? No? Okay, that's it. Town Administrator report.
Thank you. First of all, an update on the Drinking Water Supply Protection Grant. We had talked about that at one of the earlier meetings in October for 15 acres on Pomeroy Meadow Road. That grant deadline has been identified as November 16th. The grant application and cover letter would need to be signed by the Select Board Chair at the November 13 Select Board meeting at the latest. Or would the board prefer to have a special meeting for this purpose at an earlier date? And so far, I would like to thank not only the water commissioners for their work trying to move forward on this, but also Christina Madsen and Diana Fetterman for all their help in putting the information together for the grant application. Master Landscape is currently working on the Labrie Field irrigation system and the field repair work. If you go by there, you'll see that it is dug up for the irrigation piping and the electrical conduits. K-Saco Electric, Inc. Has completed the trenching and the placement of the concrete pad and conduit for the Town Hall emergency generator. The anticipated delivery of the generator should be mid-December. Holyoke Gas and Electric and EWS, who is the plumbing / gas subcontractor on this project, are going to try and coordinate their efforts for the meter upgrade swap by the gas company and the tie-in for the emergency generator, and do them at one time, so the building will not be down twice without gas. Bay State Elevator will be performing the elevator emergency telephone reprogramming for us in order to have our conditional 60-day elevator permit upgraded to a regular one-year permit as required by the state inspector. And I will be sending out the capital request letters and forms out for the capital committee later this week. Old business, the request for quotes for the replacement of the asphalt shingled roof on the Conant Park Pavilion and rebuilding the chimney are due back to the town by Wednesday, November 7th at 3 p.m. and the Parks Commission will be meeting later that evening. The request for quotes for the replacement of the metal roof on the Zipta barn are due back to the town by Monday, November 5th at 3 p.m. and the Conservation Commission will be meeting that later that evening, and one of the items will be to go over those quotes. The next special project I'll be working on is finding a qualified consultant to perform the feasibility envelope study evaluation of the police station, which is the old town hall on East Street, and going back and reviewing one of my past reports that we had been notified that the hazard mitigation grant, anything over $1 million in requests would be sent out to and compete on a national level rather than a state level. Every one of the pertinent parties seems to be on board with scoping that back so that our application request is actually under $1 million. We'll stay in state with that. And we all think that that would improve our probability of actually receiving that grant. And then upcoming, the next Board of Selectmen meeting is Tuesday, November 13th at 6 p.m. and November 27th at 6 p.m. December meetings at this point are to be determined.
Questions for Ed?
I have one question, and I wasn't around for this, but I was reading about it. Was your commentary on the old town hall, or the old town hall where the police station is? There's been money set aside for for septic evaluation for that, correct? Wasn't that voted on at a past town meeting?
My memory is, and I will actually be pursuing this over the next month, is that part of the monies that were allocated for actually the purchase of that land
Yep.
on College Highway was to be used for a septic design for,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I just think we should, if we voted on that and we have some money allocated for that, we should just continue on looking at that, right? I mean,
Yeah, I will take care of that and report back on it.
Okay, all right. Just going back to his first item then, on the water supply grant, do we want to have a special meeting, or do we want to wait until November 13th to sign the application and to hear a little bit more about the contents of the proposal?
Will the materials for the grant application be available any sooner than that, or are we looking at, you know,
The drop dead.
or is, are we,
I mean, the two pieces, I mean, the total application, they're going to be pushing to get to the deadline, which the deadline is the 16th. So how much will be ready before that, I don't know. The two pieces of the puzzle that will need signatures, if you want to do it before the meeting on the 13th, would probably be ready. The cover letter needs to be signed on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, and the application itself needs to be signed on
so that could all
behalf
be
of the
done
Board
on
of
the
Selectmen.
13th? That could all be done on the 13th?
It could be, or
is there,
or if you
is there a
want-
reasonable chance that we're gonna need to change anything in this? I mean, or is this pretty boilerplate?
It's not boilerplate.
Okay.
You know, they're working at it now. They just found out of what the deadline was about a week ago, so it's in progress. I
I
mean,
know
if you wanted to meet, you know, a few days before that, you know, or, you know, the end of that week before, I'm sure that a good portion of the grant itself would be in draft form if you wanted to go over it, in addition to looking at what the signatures might be needed.
And schedule a meeting
Diana
prior.
Diana just came in. Hi, we're just talking about the water supply protection grant. And Diana sent me an email asking for support letter from the Open Space Review Committee. And also, are you requesting that from Conservation Commission as well?
Yes,
Because we're both meeting together Monday night.
right. And Marla, yes, I heard from Marla, she agreed to
Do you wanna get her up there?
put that on the agenda. I think, I'm not quite sure who does what between the Concom and the open space, but
Yeah.
anyway, she was agreeable.
Yeah, both is better. We're just wondering about whether our board should meet earlier than the 13th, given that the deadline for the grant is the 16th. But will the grant application be, you know, ready for us to review the,
Well, we're meeting with Board of Water Commissioners and Ed on Thursday.
Should she
Yeah,
come,
could
you
you-
should
Oh,
probably come
yeah.
up to the podium.
yeah.
Diana Fetterman, Birchwood Drive. So I think it should be ready by the 13th. You know, we really just have some small pieces to get together, and a lot of it is based on the Board of Water Commissioners, maybe the water superintendent. I don't know for sure who will be involved, but it doesn't seem impossible to get it ready by then, by the 13th. And then I think Kestrel, Mark Walmsley was willing to put all the pieces together and, you know, finesse it, whatever is needed. And before, I think that they had a courier take it, but that's probably what would happen again, either overnight express or go with a courier, especially if he has any others.
Yeah.
going, yeah, to
And
Boston.
the grant is for how much?
Potential 300,000, but it's a 50% match, again.
Again. And the anticipated, do you have any idea in terms of the parcel?
Value?
Yeah.
Well, we have an appraisal in the works, we think, or, there's 1,090 feet of frontage, and the lots are zoned residential village, so that means 30,000 square feet per lot. So, not quite sure. I think the owner had said had planned to put he would put 5 houses on there, but if you do the math, could be more.
Yeah. Okay, so 300,000 with a 50% match
Yes,
would
that's maximum.
hopefully get us,
Yeah,
Let me just
Close.
interject. We think they can get up to 7 lots on there. Building lots are probably in the neighborhood of $110,000. So our estimate is that there'll probably be somewhere around $700,000.
pretty much same as the
But
other
we'd have to
part.
see what the appraisal comes back
one
at.
drawback is it abuts the Fish and Game, or whatever it is, East Hampton's shooting range.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I'd pay 110,000 for a lot that,
Yeah.
had that drawback, but that's up to the appraisal, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but it can be loud sometimes, yeah.
location, location, location.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Whoever's priority, I guess.
Uh-huh.
So the question is, do we have a separate meeting? I actually am out of town the 7th and 8th, but if you three and/or John could make it, and you think that it would be a good idea to have it before the 13th, we can look to schedule something on the Thursday, the 8th.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that there's sounding as if we'll be lucky
If
to
we
have
could
it
on the
completed by the
Yeah.
Right,
13th.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and-
meeting in advance of that,
If they could send out the information ahead of time,
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
Rick,
helpful.
That'd be very helpful.
okay.
Yeah.
So let's leave it at the 13th.
We'll leave it,
with advance
we have a select board
information.
member at 6 o'clock on the 13th, so we'll keep the meeting then and sign off on the cover letter and
The application.
anything else in order for it to go out by the
Okay.
16th.
All right,
Sound good?
sounds,
And we'll get the letters on
no, it
Monday
has to
night?
go out by the 15th or so, because the
Yes,
16th
yeah.
is, I think, noon. Yeah,
I think
noon
last
or-
time Mark even offered to drive it there if that's what it
Right,
took.
but he ended up, courier drove
Okay.
it, so, yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you
Any
very much for
questions?
your
Sure.
help with yet another town grant.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ed? Ed, I do have a question. So with the hazard mitigation grant, talked about having it stay at the state level and having it be less than 1 million. Are we still talking about not just the bridge and the pipe with the bridge, but extending up from Fulmer up to Moose Brook?
That's one of the things the water commissioners are looking at, whether they scope the project back to do less of an area, or if they say, okay, let's put in for $990,000, so it's under $1 million. And do they either have any funding that's been approved for capital improvements to the water main, or taking another look at their budget and saying, okay, will that $990,000 grant actually cover from Fulmer Road up to Moose Brook? So that's one of the things they're going through right now.
Okay. And the deadline on that is, when, do you remember?
I really should double check. I
Okay.
believe it's like beginning of January, like January 1st.
All right, plenty of
but-
time to do that
Yeah.
assessment.
Yeah, and one of the other things, they've got their consultant, CEI, working on the cost-benefit analysis that has to be sent in for the project.
Okay. I just want to mention, too, that I noticed that both Christmas and New Year's are on Tuesdays this year. So maybe when we do next meeting, if we could just, just because it's going to be a busy stretch of time, if we could figure out when to meet, if we need to meet or whatever, that would be helpful. We don't have to do that now, but it'd be good to do before long. And just one other thing, we got an email about another piece of old business. We still have that audit out there. We had received estimate on the audit if we did a 3-year commitment, and I think John Martin in particular had asked that there be a termination clause added. We got a string of emails from Vicky. I didn't see where the select board concern was voiced. So, Ed, I'm just wondering if you would be willing to follow up on, with the auditors, or, I mean, it just seems like we probably should have this taken care of, and I didn't see that our concerns were addressed up till now.
Certainly.
Could I have a motion for that? I just think that I would like to make it official.
Okay. Yes, I'll move that we get clarification in the auditor's proposal that, for a termination clause and the conditions of the termination clause,
And have Ed follow up on them?
and have Ed follow up.
Thanks. A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, on to new business. The first new business is the North School Committee update. So Erin Kuchar, our chair.
Erin Kuchar, 49 Coleman Road. So I was just asked to come because at the end of our school committee meeting on last Wednesday, there was a group of teachers that came, and the head of the union read a statement indicating that they were not happy with what was going on with teacher contract negotiations and that they were going to be working to rule. So basically just means that they'll be coming in 8:30, leaving at 3:20, and doing just what it says their contract says and nothing else. So, it was a shock to us. We're still negotiating with them. I can't talk about the negotiations, but we're still trying to set up meetings and work with them, but I guess they're not happy. So, we did do Erin, the superintendent, and I did a letter that went out to all of the school parents that explained what work to rule was and kind of what it meant, and that we anticipate this is going to go on for a while, maybe even into the new year. So I don't know.
What happens if all the children haven't left yet and 3:20 arrives?
So almost on every day, all the kids are out of the school by 3:20. But every once in a while, there is a school bus that may be late, but Eliza is not part of that. So the principal, the vice principal, even the custodians are not part of that, can be out there to be with the children. So that they'll never be left alone. But most days, all the kids are out by 3:20.
And if I remember correctly, the superintendent volunteered to
Yeah.
come down and help.
He said he'd come down any day that she would be short or whatever, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I don't think, I was worried there was gonna be some impacts, but I had a pretty good discussion with Eliza, and she said that, nope, the school will run fine. Some of the after-school activities will be impacted, but that's at the teacher's discretion, so if they don't wanna stay for after-school help, that's their choice, and they don't have to do it, and per contract, they don't. So some of that stuff may be impacted, but, so.
Do you have a sense of what is being impacted? How much time has passed? About a week or less than a
Yeah,
week?
their first day was Thursday, so it hasn't even been a week.
Okay. Have you heard of anything that's fallen down or fallen off?
I know after-school help in 5th grade was canceled this week. If you had kids coming for the math program, they weren't doing that. There's been rumors, but I haven't seen it yet, on how long this will go. Will it affect Quidditch and some of the other things that the kids do? I don't know.
Yeah.
We're negotiating, but,
Is it a 3-year contract that you're negotiating, or is it longer than that?
oh no, we never do more than 3.
That's what I thought.
3
Never
years
do
is the
longer than
longest
3.
We
legal.
never do
Right.
more than 3,
Without
yeah.
town
It was
meeting
the most
approval.
that we've
Right.
ever done.
Not even
so,
with
Really?
town meeting
Yeah,
approval.
yeah, so, anyway.
So John Martin is our representative to the negotiations, and...
Yes, we haven't had a meeting since they announced that. We've been trying to get a date on the books. It's been very difficult. It looks like we can't find anything till after, maybe even Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we can't meet till after 5 because we have people on the committee that have full-time jobs.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've been as flexible with dates, so,
Okay. Okay.
we're trying as hard as we can. We're continuing to go forward. We have our lawyer involved with anything, if we do hit any sort of impasse or anything, so
Okay.
we're up on it, so,
And thank you for sending out the letter right away to the parents and letting them know.
yeah, that was important, so,
Yep.
because there was a lot of rumors flying
Yeah, I'm
around,
sure.
so. But I think it's okay, and, we'll do whatever we have to do, so.
Yep. Okay, thanks for the update.
Yep.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
I just want to mention that on the old business we had on the agenda, 111 Glendale Road, but there was no other updates other than the meeting that's happening with Concom on Monday, and we are still waiting to hear about the grant, which we don't anticipate hearing about until December. So next on the new business is the renewal of the town open space and recreation plan discussion. So if we are interested in continuing to apply for such grants, we do have to have an updated open space and recreation plan. And it's every 7 years, and we're already just over year 6, so we're like 6 1/4 into it. So we basically have to address this. I had a conversation with Marla briefly about this. Excuse me, and last time there was, it was done by somebody from the PVPC, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And I did ask Vicki what account was used to pay for it, and she said it came out of partially select board expenses and partially planning board revolving. My understanding was that the cost of it was more than what I remember either of those accounts as having. So maybe they were cut between now and 7 years back. But at any rate, we really need to move forward if we're going to continue to apply for such grants as, you know, has been mentioned tonight.
So what was that amount, you said?
Well, that's, I wrote back to her to ask her what the
Oh, okay.
amount
You
was,
didn't
and
get to
she
that.
just said, originally I only had asked her, what accounts did they come from?
Okay.
And then I wrote back and asked her about how much it was. So I think the sense is that PVPC, let's see if she wrote back, PVPC, you know, was, you know, thought that that would be, there were 2 people that had done it in the past for us, and I don't know, one of them is Courtney Half, the other Ann Wellington, so those are the 2 people that have been involved in the past, and I believe one is the person that works at PVPC. So what are your thoughts about that, Ed? Any? In terms of the direction to go, do you recommend that we reach out to PVPC and,
I think reaching out to PVPC, it makes the most sense.
okay,
For us in our situation. And, you know, we can also reach out and ask them if they know if there's any upcoming grants or anything to help
Yeah.
fund that.
yeah. I think what happens is that what Marla explained to me is that if we contact them about they're doing this, they then apply for grants in order to get the funding to do it. So hopefully that will help us.
Absolutely. But yeah,
Okay.
I'll reach out to them. I can get an estimated cost on it and
Okay.
and ask them if they know of any upcoming grants we might be eligible for.
Yeah, and my understanding is they pretty much update what was already done, so
Correct.
it's not a whole huge new document. So you'll go ahead and reach out to them?
It just depends on how much has happened in the last 7 years, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments about that? No? Okay, discussion on warrant signing and town administrator review of the warrants.
Okay, yes, that's something that I asked for. As the clerk, I sign all the warrants on behalf of the select board as they're processed. And I occasionally have questions about it, and I go to Ed. Ed really is bypassed in this whole process. The town administrator does not sign the warrants. They're signed by the department head, by the accountant, and then by whomever is the clerk of the select board. And I think just as a point of contact and a point of information, and given his responsibility for our budget overall, I would like to recommend and hope that others agree with me that he also sign the warrants. It doesn't mean that he'll sign them before or after. It just means that he will, you know, not to have people concerned that things are going to be held up by another signature, but just that he becomes aware of our cash flow and the timing and the items and some of the details, quite frankly. So that's my request of the select board. Anybody have any comments?
I mean, I guess my only thought to this is do we think that there should be kind of a pre-approval based on a certain dollar limit before the money's actually spent? Do
Well-
we have anything like that in place? Like where items over a certain amount of money need pre-approval or discussion?
At this point, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, you can get into the fact that basically, once you cross the $10,000 threshold, is that some level of procurement should have been done along the way. So those should cross my desk in one form or another. My understanding, and I can't remember the dollar amount, is they had used purchase orders in the past, but that actually turned out to be more of a issue with the system that we had than making it worthwhile. But yeah, if you wanted me to, review the warrants, sign off on them at some point in time, and report back on anything that I had, saw that I thought didn't fit the norm or what have you, or might have cost savings parameters to it, I would be happy to do that.
It doesn't hurt.
You had something?
Doesn't hurt to have them double check. I think that's a,
I think it's a good oversight.
Yes. And getting to Matt's point, I mean, that may be something we would want to look at somewhere down the line, but at this point in time, until we devise and think about this through a little more carefully.
Yeah, I think
This
should have
will-
a couple more checks on
Right.
this.
Would someone like to make a motion then?
I move that the town administrator's signature be added to the warrant process.
I second that.
And
Oh.
just before you go on, is the clarification in that motion that that signature not necessarily occur or have to occur to the process
Okay.
before the Board of Selectmen has
Okay.
signed off on it?
Yes, I'll add that. That his signature not necessarily have to take place to finalize the warrant, but at some point in time in the existence of that warrant, before or after, he will have seen it and signed it.
And it doesn't require it be before a department head
Right.
expenditure, correct? It's just to be
Right.
informed
Right.
about the details of the warrants.
Right.
Yes. It's a communication.
Right. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay. Is there any other necessary business that cannot wait until the November 13th regular Select Board meeting? Nope. Okay, there are no PCFs, there are no licenses and permits. How about the warrants then?
Okay. All right, if we go through the list, warrant P 19-16 for $263,314.83. PD 19-16 for $41,673.90. P 19-16A, $304.24. PD 19-16 A2 for $176,402.75, and W 19-17 for $117,703.68.
Did I miss it, or did you miss the 2434?
PD 19-16, 2434.
okay.
Yes.
Got it, perfect.
A motion is accept the warrants?
We don't usually.
You don't need to do that? Okay.
I just usually
thanks.
read them in the record, that's all.
Okay, good. Okay, there are no other documents requiring signatures. The minutes are not quite ready for the minutes there. So we'll look to those next time. As Ed said, the next meetings of the Select Board are November 13th and 27th, and December meetings will be TBD. So at this point, it's open time for the public. The Select Board reserves a portion of its meeting for public comment and encourages participation as follows. Open time is a time when town residents can bring matters before the Select Board that require a minimum of discussion and are not on the agenda. Please try to keep your comments short and to the point. Plan on being allowed to up to 5 minutes per person, not per topic, to speak to any meeting order, open time only. If it appears that the topics being discussed will consume larger than 5 minutes allocated, at the discretion of the chair, the matter will be placed on an upcoming Board of Selectmen meeting agenda. If you believe that your topic will require more than or desire to make a more formal presentation than is allowed under these guidelines, please contact the town administrator to ask to be put on a future agenda so that we can properly allocate enough time. You're free to ask questions or to make your point for all to consider. However, engaging in active debate with the select board or audience members will not be allowed. All comments and questions must be directed to the chair of the board. All remarks must be respectful, courteous, free of name-calling, personal attacks, and inappropriate language will not be tolerated. So, hello, Robert.
Hi. I forgot why I came up here. Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. Two tweaks for what may have been said earlier. We are being recorded tonight and not broadcast for live. I'll get into that in a minute. And on the election is going from 7 a.m. to 8
7,
p.m.
okay.
on Tuesday.
Okay.
We are on track, as previously reported. East Hampton Media, we interviewed last evening. We selected a candidate. We're checking, we have 2 more references to check. Possibly by midday tomorrow, we will present an offer to a candidate. We expect that candidate to accept and report for work on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, November 23rd. I will work to have this candidate, then hired as executive director, come to address the board here in December, some Tuesday, whatever Tuesday you may be meeting, and it works out. As far as the equipment, Tim Raleigh, Stan Diamond, board director, and Ryan have been working hard for the last 2 weeks. We thought it might be this. We thought it might be the fiber. We got charter involved. No smoking gun, but it comes back to the outdated equipment here in Southampton, which has been manufactured in 2009, and charter presented it to us so that we could use their optics from coaxial cable. And that equipment really becomes outdated almost daily. So I imagine the new executive director of East Hampton Media will approach you and suggest a list of equipment which can be covered by the capital funds, which I understand is a little under 60,000, and so that's on the horizon. Plus, there's a contract with Southampton that needs to be renegotiated, and that person will be doing point on that.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for the update.
So what you're saying is there won't be any live feed until we either get new equipment that you've exhausted?
Well, no, I won't say that. The likelihood, perhaps, but we expected something today, and it didn't happen with the new equipment. So we're still trying. We're not giving up. Our president really was outraged that this has gone on this long, this last couple of weeks, and he will be calling Ed shortly after we hire the executive director and just keep the connections going, at least behind the scenes. So, okay. Cheers.
Thank you. Hi, Bob.
Hi, good evening. Barbara LaFlamme, 20 Cook Road. This one's an easy one. Are we technically, do we have a select board, or do we have a board of selectmen? And what change has to occur for us to have a select board?
Technically, officially, we have a board of selectmen. And what has to occur is the references, at least to the main body of our bylaws, needs to be changed from where they're called Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Does that require a town meeting vote?
That would require a town meeting vote, correct. Any bylaw change does.
So we can look forward to that in the fairly near future?
We've discussed that in the past. It's one of the things we'd like to see happen, yes.
Thank you. Told you it would be easy.
Well,
Thank you.
I mean, one of the things I discovered early on was not only is there no charter in the town of Southampton, but from what I have seen, there's no special legislation to put any piece into play. So that makes it a simpler change, because if the governing body was established by special legislation or by charter, it would also have to be sent, well, it would have to be voted on a ballot, and then sent to Boston to be approved by the legislature. So in this particular case, the way everything's established, it would just simply be a town meeting vote.
And just to assure you that I spent some time on the bylaw committee, and in the draft version that's been proposed, those changes have been made. They just have to be finalized, and then, among other changes, and then go to town meeting.
So is that on the agenda, or what needs to happen for bylaws to be adopted and then a warrant put forward?
Virginia Ayer, 27 Fulmer Road. A member of the now fairly inactive bylaw committee. It really kind of slowed down and hasn't been meeting since Velda left us. She was absolutely wonderful in updating everything as we talked about it. That needs to get going again, and yes, we were making that change. We have a few more bylaws that need to be looked at, including the biggie one, which is about dogs and animals in this town. But it wouldn't take too many more meetings, but I even don't know who's left on the committee. Yeah, so needs to be looked into,
And
just to get the bylaws.
Was Velda the chair?
Yes,
Okay.
and she would pull the group together and then do all the recording of all the changes. And we didn't have too many left. So,
Maybe we should start with Ed looking into the committees, the people that were appointed and who left, and how many openings we have, and we can probably talk about it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Ed?
no, hang on one second. Francine was actually
Yes,
on the bylaws
I
committee.
was on it, Janine,
Velda, Virginia.
and Virginia.
I can start with Janine and see who's
Yes.
Okay.
still left
Yeah.
and how many vacancies are on it.
Well, let's hope we can pull together a meeting, and that could be added to the warrant for the next town meeting, which will probably, at this point, do you think, be in January?
My guess would be it would either be towards the end of December,
Or
and
January,
then you're
okay.
going for the holidays, or we're into January again.
Okay, because that's been thrown around a lot in the last several months, so let's see if we can make that happen for the next warrant. Thank you.
Okay. Rini, one clarification, I got a text from Paul Deman, the chair of the planning board,
Yeah,
and the public meeting for the recreational marijuana bylaw that we've been working on, he says it's right now planned for December 5th. So it will be posted, and it'll be advertised in the newspaper.
okay, thank you. Anyone else? No one else. Okay, then, we will be going into executive session, and we will not be returning to open session. There are 3 items in executive session: MGL, Chapter 30A, Section 21, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and this is regarding Local 98 International Union of Operating Engineers, the highway. MGL, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Police officers, New England Benevolent Police Association, And lastly, Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. East Street Bridge. Could I have a motion for executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Can I have a roll call vote?
Roland, aye.
Tishman, aye.
Labrie, aye.
Groden, aye. Thank you. We'll just take a 5-minute break and come back. Thanks.